In this video, we are going to look at one strategy for figuring out what words mean by using the context. So there's a number of different strategies that we can use when we're trying to figure out what words mean. We can replace the word with a word that makes sense in the context, and we'll look at that in just a moment. We can look for examples in the sentence, or we can look at said, which we'll get into later in the semester, synonyms, antonyms, inference, and definitions. But let's focus on that first one. We're going to replace the word with another word that makes sense in that context. When you don't know that word, you can often figure out what it means just by substituting something that would make sense. For example, let's look at this sentence. Because she felt unattractive, Mary was diffident and kept to herself at parties. Now, let's just say I don't know what this word diffident means. I would say to myself, what would make sense in this sentence? What word would I put here if I were given this as an exercise? Because she felt unattractive, Mary was quiet and kept to herself. Or Mary was shy and kept to herself. Or Mary was unassured. Or Mary was low in self-esteem. Something like that. That is what would make the definition then. So when I check it, I find out that diffident actually means lacking confidence or not comfortable around people. Let's try another example. Here's a sentence. Linda is so supercilious that she refuses to friend anyone outside her race. So again, we ask ourselves, take that word out. What word would make sense in this particular place in the sentence? Linda is so blank that she refuses to friend anyone outside her race. Now we could say bigoted would make sense. We could say stuck up. We could say she thinks she's better than everyone else. And we check that, and that's more or less what it means. Supercilious means having the proud attitude of believing you're better than someone else. Let's try a third example. Because of the young woman's pecuniary needs, she is determined to marry a wealthy man. Again, we take out the word that we don't know, leave it blank, and replace it with something that makes sense. Because of the young woman's blank needs, she is determined to marry a wealthy man. Now, we could say this wealthy man is full of status, and we could say this is an ego need, but why wealthy? Why not just important man? So we know that wealth has something to do with money, so it makes sense because of the young woman's financial needs, because of the young woman's monetary needs. And when we check the definition, we find that pecuniary does in fact mean consisting of or measured in money. One last example. Let's look at this sentence. Because so many feckless parents are raising children these days, we shouldn't be surprised at the number of irresponsible teenagers. What does feckless mean? Let's think about it by taking the word out and leaving a blank and replacing it with something else. Because so many blank parents are raising children these days, we shouldn't be surprised at the number of irresponsible teenagers. Now, we could say younger parents, or we could say busy parents, because we know there are a lot of words that could describe parents these days. But the important part is here, irresponsible teenagers. And if teenagers are going to be something like their parents, then the word that would make sense here, because so many irresponsible parents, or perhaps because so many ineffective parents are raising children these days, we shouldn't be surprised at the number of irresponsible teenagers. Because if they were effective, those teenagers would have learned responsibility, right? So let's check the definition, and we find that feckless actually does mean weak or ineffective. So you see, we can be using the definitions or a replacement of the word to determine the definition of the word that we don't know. Now it's your turn. In this week's reading, I would like for you to find 2 words that you do not know. Words that are appropriate for the high school level, words that my 5th grader or 6th grade sons would not know. Make a guess at what that definition is by replacing the word in the original sentence with something that would make sense. Then, check the definition and post your findings on our class wiki. And again, you'll do this for 2 different words. But the important thing to remember is that you can try replacing the word with another word that makes sense and often come up with the definition. And that's it. Give it a try.